Hello everybody and welcome to Google Classroom. This is going to be a quick tutorial on how to get started. So Google Classroom is basically Google's answer to a learning management system. It is a space, a classroom space that allows you to post your materials, to post quizzes, and also to post announcements for students. It has integration with Google Meet, so you can easily start up a Google Meet session as well. Students can use it to collaborate with you, turn assignments in, or also collaborate with other students pretty easily within one space. So far as a Timon community, you've probably been introduced to our Google at Timon classroom. I'll just kind of give you a little walk around before we dive into showing you how to create your own space. So this is how Google at Timon is set up. You can see that we have a Meet area in case we ever have a one-on-one session or a synchronous session in Google Meet, which we do. And then also there's a class code underneath it. So if I were to invite somebody to this classroom, that is how they could go to Google Classroom and then enter in the class code if they didn't have the direct link. In case there's any assignments assigned, you would see those assignments posted on the left-hand side underneath upcoming. That goes by the due date. On the right-hand side, you can see all of the materials that have been posted as kind of this running thread, but also I'm able to announce something to everybody in much the same way using this announce feature here. And you could see that had I had other classrooms, you can go ahead and link those here as well. You can post to all students or maybe just one. You can also easily link in documents from your Google Drive, or you can also easily post in a YouTube video that might be on your channel. You can upload a file to this space or add a link as well. But for the most part, most people just use it to simply type and post an announcement. So that is your stream. You're going to notice these tabs up at the top here. We also have classwork, and this is kind of the main space where you put all of the work. We'll see a few different icons as we scroll down a little bit, and you can go ahead and click on the material, and then you'll be able to download any of the downloads or watch any of the videos that are linked here as well. We can also view the material in kind of a big space and also add comments to it. Trying to look for another file type here, and we have a question. So question and answer is also another thing we can do, and people can view the question and then also turn in a response to it. So you can do a Q&A with students as well. And there are plenty of other features. So once you get in there, you can also just put in a link to an item. You have a very basic text box. So there isn't really a lot of opportunity for, headings or using colors to really draw attention to it. So you're going to have this very simple sort of communication space once you get in there. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what is available to create. We can create assignments, quizzes, questions. Materials is a majority of what you saw here. You can also choose to reuse posts as well. And topics. So topics are these big categories that I've created here in order to organize the materials that I've posted there for you. All right, so that is that. And then if we head on over to people, we'll see everybody who is a member or a student inside of this space, as well as we also have grades. So I'm just going to click, got it. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at you creating your own Google Classroom. All right, so we are back to the Google Classroom space, classroom.google.com. You will not most likely see this class on the left-hand side. You may not see anything here, and it may just say, hey, create your first class. And that's where we can start from, or you can click on the plus sign up at the top right. Now, note, you can have as many classrooms as you want. You may want to continue building on each classroom, or you may want to create one for each year, each term you run it, and that's fine as well. There may be other purposes you might want to create a Google Classroom for, such as a club that you are a monitor or manager of. All right, so we're going to go ahead, create or join a class. And in our case, we want to create a class. If students come here, they can also opt to join a class with the code that you would give them. So let's go ahead and click create a class, and we're going to go ahead and just make it a test Google Classroom. You can also title the section, so we'll say 23 spring, and then what is the subject, and we'll just say training, though it does give you, we'll say lifeguard training. It does give you some options there, or of course selecting your own. And then you can also choose a classroom if there is a room. So we'll just say 101 and create. Now it takes a second to usually for the classroom to get created, but once it does, it pushes you to the space, it assigns an image up at the top, and then you do have the basic bare bones of what I just showed you in that Google at Timon classroom. One of the first things you may want to do is if you plan on having or using Google Meet, you can go ahead and generate a link for Google Meet, and then we'll go ahead and save that. So that's a direct link to your Google Meet, or you can have the join over here on the left-hand side. The class code is what you're going to want to send out to students so that they can easily join your classroom. And then any work, again, that is coming up or has a due date is listed on the left-hand side. You can go ahead and announce something to your students. You could say, welcome to the class. And you'll also notice that you can post it to multiple classes. So if it was something like, don't forget there's a holiday coming up, all coursework will be due before, we leave for holiday or whatever. You can go ahead and post that announcement to multiple classrooms. And then we can also go ahead and paste in any kind of a file. So if it was something like, don't forget to turn this in, you can go ahead and search your Google Drive for that file. And in our case, we're just going to include a link to our Google Classroom file here. Welcome to the class. This is a test class. And then post that, and you're going to see that the link to that file is posted there as well. Let's go ahead and head on over to classwork. So this space is very bare bones until you actually start to build it out. What I like to try to get in my head first and foremost is how all of the different categories that I'm going to want to file coursework in. Now for you, that may mean you are going on a weekly schedule. So here's what's going on every week. You may also do it by category. So here are the class resources. You may do kind of a mixture of things. So here's what's going on every week. Here are the upcoming tests in one area. And then also here are the course materials. So let's just pretend we're doing that. And whether we choose to do module 1 or week 1, whatever, we can go ahead and put the topic in for week 1. And then we can continue to add topics. You're going to notice that there's a menu now forming on the left-hand side. We can create another one for resources, and we can create another one for our assignments. You can drag and drop these down so we can put them in the actual order we want. What I don't necessarily like is that Google tends to, in Google Classroom, put everything up at the top, when I usually think in terms of, things should be put down at the bottom of the list. This isn't the only space you'll see this happening in. You'll also see it in just a second when we start to add things to each one of these topics. So for our first one, say it is week 1, we want to go ahead and add a material. And again, we'll just choose that same file from our Google Drive. It doesn't have to be in Google Drive. I'm just easily grabbing it here for you. Just to show you. You can also choose to upload something or paste in a link. So say, I'm always real careful because I think it yells at you if you don't do this. But say you wanted to put in a link to a space, you could do that. You can also choose to create from scratch, and this will go into your Google Drive folder that has now been created for your classroom. From scratch, you can create a document, slides, or sheets. you can also put in a video. And go ahead and add that video. So now here are all the resources we want students to be able to take a look at. Week 1, and then here are, as I mentioned before, you don't really have a lot of HTML options in this space. We can go ahead and bold it, we can go ahead and italicize it, we can go ahead and underline it, but you don't have sort of heading 1, heading 2, really a lot of opportunity to do that. All right, so we've attached a bunch of files below. We have added some description information there. We've also put in the title. And now we can go ahead and choose where we want to put it. Again, you have that option to post in more than one space. You can give it to all students. And then you can also put it under a topic, which is what we want to do before we go ahead and come back to the main topic area, the stream area. So if we go ahead and click week 1, it will now go under week 1 and we can go ahead and post it. We're going to go back, to the classwork area, and we're going to see that it is there. Students can click on it and they can also choose to view the material. So that is what material looks like. But we also have some other options in here. One of those things that I highlighted earlier was you can do a question and an answer. So we could say, you know, what are your plans for the weekend? And if you had any kind of files, again, that you wanted to attach, you could do that. If you had more instructions for students where you wanted them maybe to use this as an exit ticket for the class, you would give them more instructions for how to do it. You'll notice on the right-hand side that you now have this option for points. So we can go ahead and assign students certain points. We can also make this ungraded. And maybe you're just giving them some free points or 1 point or 100 points or whatever. We can also give them a due date. So our due date is maybe by tomorrow. And our topic, again, is going to go underneath week 1. And we're going to make sure everything from before that's in the right class, that's going to all the students. Can students edit the answer? I'm always a big fan of that, but you may not be for whatever your reason. And students can also reply to each other. Sure, sounds great. Guess what? I'm also going to the mall this weekend. Let's meet up. So go ahead and click Ask. And remember how I said earlier, this is kind of a tricky thing, right? Because I really want this to be below lesson 1, and it didn't go there. So we have to drag and drop it to go below. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of our other options that I didn't show you earlier. So one might be a quiz assignment. All right, so we have now an assignment. This space looks the same. You know what you're doing in this space. That's what I love about Google Classroom, is they don't try and change up everything every time you go into a different item. All right, so we're going to call this quiz number 1. You're going to notice something pretty interesting. It's created already for you a blank quiz. I'm going to show you how to operate that in just a second. Many of you are very familiar already with Google Forms, and that's exactly what that is, except it's got a graded mode on it. And you can leave some instructions for students, you know, like this is an open book quiz. And we're going to go down to the next part here. This is kind of new. It is automatically decided to create a blank quiz for us. We can open that up, rename it, all that stuff in just a second. We will do that. But you're also going to notice that there's something called locked mode in Chromebooks. You may have seen this elsewhere in Google. And this means that your respondents, when they're on their Chromebook, which you have, are not able to open tabs or any other applications while they're taking the quiz. You want to turn that on? Awesome. And you can choose to do this inside of class as well. Have students just open up their Chromebooks, go to the classroom, and now we're in a hybrid learning experience, right? So let's go ahead and open up the blank quiz here. You may be familiar with Google Forms. That is what this is created here. We're just going to call this quiz 1. You can absolutely go ahead and give a description here, or you can just start adding questions. What is the capital of... And by the magic of television, I cheated and I entered in these capitals or these cities off-site because I always have to remember how to spell Albuquerque. That U in the middle throws me off every time. All right, and I don't have the option right now to pick an answer because it is acting as if it's a survey until I go ahead and click on answer key. And then at that point, I'm able to select Santa Fe. And then go ahead and click done. Now, of course, you have the option to also add answer feedback for each of the incorrect answers or the correct answers, which I love. You can also add videos in there like, hey, students, actually, this is the right answer. This answer is wrong because of this. Now go ahead and go back to our resources and choose the correct answer. For now, we're just going to go ahead and click done. And then we're going to say that this is required. And we're going to move along here. The other thing that we didn't do is we didn't assign points. My bad. So we're just going to go ahead and add this, add 10 points to this particular question and keep moving along here. Okay, so we are finished putting in our questions and our answers. The only thing that we didn't do is we need to change our quiz title here. So I'll just call it quiz 1, but you go ahead and use whatever naming convention you want. Sometimes it's easier to say lesson 1, quiz 1 than the class before that, just so it organizes nicely in your Google Drive area. And then we'll head on back to our assignment here, and then hopefully that title will update there, and then grade importing. So the grade work will import here. And we have 100 points assigned to this. We also are going to set a due date of tomorrow. And then we can assign a time and then choose the topic it's going in, which is going to be week 1. Now, the great thing is that if you are doing a qualitative assessment, you can go ahead and put in a rubric. And we can go ahead and create a rubric. You're going to notice that there is a really cool, complex rubric system here. So you're able to punch in the criterion title, the criterion description, and then do points, level title, and description. Highly recommend using rubrics for especially authentic assessments. If you would like a tutorial on that later, just let me know. We'll definitely do one. We're going to go ahead and click assign. And then we'll find it up at the top, which we need to move it all the way down to the bottom. And we're going to see that if we click on it, that the title of that quiz has indeed updated itself. All right, so we have our topics here. We've created a quiz. We've created a Q&A. We've also created material. There's one more thing we haven't created, and that is an assignment. So if we want students to drop something into a Dropbox, and all of those Dropbox things are going to go into a folder somewhere in our Google Drive, we can use an assignment to do that. So we're going to say paper number 1, and then we'd provide the instructions. In this case, you probably want to provide a lot of instructions. We can also provide links. Say you want to provide a link to APA, or you might be using MLA. Any of that is basics. Well, of course, we're on the 7th edition now, but that video will just do for now. And then we go ahead and write in our introductions and our description, and then we can go ahead and assign a due date. We'll do that for next week, put in a time frame. We want to check plagiarism, so you can enable originality reports on 5 assignments per class. So in this case, do we want to go ahead and continue? Yes. And we would want to build out a rubric for this one. We're going to put it in week 1, and then we'll come back to the rubric later and build that out. Go ahead and click assign, and that assignment is put in there. We're going to move it down right above the quiz, and that is our introduction to classwork. So let's go ahead and check out our Google Calendar that is assigned to this class. And we can see that tomorrow we do have a question that's assigned. Then if we head on over to next week, we have our paper that's at the very end of the day, and then we should have another paper or assignment quiz number 1 that's at the very end of the day. that I think is really super helpful for students. You may want to put it at a time where they're going to be more easily able to see it, or just, of course, if it didn't have a date and a time on it, or a time really, it would just pop up at the top of the calendar. So the calendar is kind of a neat feature, and a calendar is automatically created for students to be able to look at their own calendars and see what's due and what's coming up, and then schedule along with that. It's really good to get them in the habit of that, because their calendar is going to rule their lives once they head out into the workplace. Class Drive folder. So for you, all of that file work is going to go into that Google Drive, and you can see that that's where your quizzes and that's where your quiz responses are going to end up as well. And if we go back, we have our test classroom, and once students start to submit to that assignment, it'll end up here as well. Okay, and then if we head on over to people, any students who have joined your class will end up here. You can also go ahead and add students as well to the class and invite them. And then your gradebook will be here as well, and you can manage and look at your gradebook from this space. Okay, so before we close, I did just want to pull up another tab to show you what it looks like from the student perspective. We created our Google Classroom just a few minutes ago. I invited my other Bishop Timon account. So the one thing to note is that in order to invite folks to your classroom the way we have it set up at Timon, is you have to have a Timon email account. And once I got that invite by email / when I logged into classroom.google.com, I was able to click and join the meeting. Of course, I can always go to that website, classroom.google.com, and punch in the code that my teacher would give me as well. So this is what I see on my screen. It's a more stripped down version of what teachers see, because you don't see all the editing options. I can go ahead and join a Google Meet that we're having right now. I can see what my upcoming assignments are that are due. I can also look at all of them in one view. I'm just going to head on back. And then I can also see the announcements that have been posted, all the new material that's been posted. I can click on that from here. I could head over to classwork. What you won't see are the topics that we created where we didn't add anything into. So that's interesting, right? You'll notice that the icons are slightly different, because we have due dates on some and not due dates on the other. And if I'm looking at a lesson, I can go ahead and read that lesson. I can also see what are your plans for the weekend, and I can go ahead and type in my response. I'm dating myself by saying heading to the mall. Who does that anymore? And I can also look at my classmates' answers as well, and then reply to them, which is pretty fun, very interactive. And then I can go to the paper here, and I can click to view the assignment, and it's going to give me some directions. I can go ahead and add a comment, a private comment to my teacher, and ask them a question maybe about the assignment. So, how long does this paper have to be? And of course, you will tell me, look in the syllabus. Okay, add or create. This is where I go ahead and I will upload my assignment from Google Drive. So I can either start it there already, or go ahead and create a new doc. And guess what? It's going to attach that doc to this space, which is amazing. I'm also going to click got it. That when I'm ready, I can go ahead and turn in that assignment in order for it to be checked for that originality report. I can also run it myself as a student. So when I'm ready, go ahead and turn it in, and then it will be turned in anyway. It's yelling at me because there's nothing going on there. And then I go ahead and it's submitted, right? So now I can head on back to the classroom. I can also choose to add comments here too, which is pretty fun. And then I can go into the quiz, and I can click on the quiz. Okay, so I opened up the quiz, and the one thing that locked mode does is it only allows respondents to access the quiz on Chromebooks. That may be a consideration you may wish to take into account, is making sure that the students actually have the Chromebooks and they're able to access the quizzes. Otherwise, they won't be able to get to them without those Chromebooks. And you can always take off that restriction on that quiz later. All right, so that's what that looks like. And then also once other students join, I'll be able to see the people who I have access to. All right, well, happy creating. I hope you really enjoy Google Classroom, and let me know if you have any other questions or want to see any other tutorials on it.